Well, hello and welcome everyone. As we meet today, we're at the height of sales kickoff season in North America. The weather's chilly, the quotas are silly, and sales enablement's running around willy-nilly. My name's Matt Cameron. I'm the CEO of SaaSy Sales Leadership. We run public and private trainings for the go-to-market functions at SaaS organizations. And given my accent, I would be remiss if I were not to point out that as many of us are running around at 99% capacity, the Southern Hemisphere right now is at peak holiday season. So while we're figuring out virtual SKOs for the first time, some of us, the Aussies and the New Zealanders are more focused on backyard games of cricket and how to keep the flies off their barbecue food. However, we'll leave them to that, their prawns and lamb chops, and see if we can't figure out how to really make sure all your hard work around SKO pays dividends in the months ahead. And today we're going to spend around 30 minutes in a panel discussion with our guests I'll be introducing in a moment. And I would encourage you to put questions in the Q&A panel at any time, and I'll make sure that we get to them. So with that, our first panelist is Jessica Boyd, who's the Revenue Enablement Manager, L&D at Highspot. Jessica, please say hi and tell us a little bit about Highspot and why you think this topic's important.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. So like Matt mentioned, my name is Jessica, and I am part of the Revenue Enablement team at Highspot. Highspot is a revenue enablement platform that helps companies make the most of every customer conversation. Our intuitive platform combines intelligent content management, training and coaching capabilities, guidance, customer engagement, and actionable analytics. Go-to-market teams use Highspot to deliver a unified buyer experience that increases revenue, customer satisfaction, and ultimately retention. As a member of the enablement team, I'm focused on the foundational side of enablement. So think onboarding programs, go-to-market continuous training events, and even a little bit of product enablement. And honestly, I'm personally energized by this topic and so excited to talk about it. One of my favorite aspects of enablement is when you get to see those magic light bulb moments from our audiences or from our reps. And you witness a lot of those at things like SKO. When you bring people together, you create those learning opportunities. So it's exciting to think about those magic moments post SKO as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Our second panelist today is Misha McPherson. She's the head of global revenue enablement at Coursera. She's also a facilitator and advisor at SaaSy Sales Leadership. Thank you. And she tells me, I can't believe this, more than 20 years experience in enablement. Misha, please say hi and let us know why you like this topic.
So, and it's more than 20 years in sales and sales enablement experience, but I am one of the early guard sales enablement folks. I've been in the field for a long time, and I cannot even tell you how many kickoffs I have planned and done at this point. I don't want to count. It would probably make me a little sad. I love this topic though, and I specifically love this topic because kickoffs are an incredibly expensive activity. And they're incredibly important, an event for us to run on a yearly basis. I think that one of the things that this virtual world is going to lead us to is us really having a better understanding of what is the ROI of kickoff and how do we make sure, that it's sticky. I think that's how we put so much time and effort into these events, making sure that they last not just until the people get back from, off the plane, but throughout the next 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months. So important.
That's awesome. And so whilst our focus today is what happens beyond and making it stick, there's kind of some prerequisites, but I sort of had a broad question. I might throw to you quickly first, Misha, to kick things off. Virtual, it's what we do now. And based on your experience, I know you've done virtual things in the past as well. How do you think about it in terms of stickiness? Is it better than in person? Is it worse, good, bad, different? How?
So in one way, I will say, let me answer that question in 6 months because I'm a week before our own kickoff. So a lot of us are taking a guess. My suspicion is that the kickoffs this year are going to be substantially more sticky than any year previously because so much work has to go into the pre-work and into the post-work because you don't have everybody in person. So my suspicion is that we're going to find that virtual really does add an additional aspect to the kickoff that's important.
Awesome. So let's think about this pre-SKO stuff, the foundation, and before we get into post, because I think that's really critical for setting us up for success. So Jessica, maybe you could kick us off. I'd like to understand, in thinking about who needs to contribute and sponsor, importantly, our SKOs to make sure that we deliver really sticky, high impact ones that get the outcomes that we want?
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation to have. From my perspective, to deliver a high impact SKO that is really sticky, you need to make sure you have a range of voices and perspectives involved. So to do this internally, we of course have our cross-functional planning crew, members from product marketing, enablement, customer advocacy, even those frontline managers. They all bring different strengths to the table. But for kind of the purpose of this conversation, I would love to focus on two groups specifically. And these two groups really play the most impactful role in actually delivering that sticky SKO. So first, let's talk about kind of the role of sponsorship and executives, and then we can pivot a little bit and talk about the role of frontline managers. So role of executives. I think from the beginning, leadership teams need to be involved from the very start. As everyone on this call can probably relate to, there are so many competing priorities, and it's really important that the leadership team not only is aligned, but actually agrees on the goals of the kickoff and the most top of mind topics or priorities that align to those goals. That totally needs to be decided on that leadership level. So internally, for our upcoming SKO, our leadership team felt strongly that with the current reality, with 2020 and all that has happened, the most important goal for our go-to-market teams is to actually educate and inspire and really narrow down and focus just on three main topics and initiatives that are really top of mind, and just stay focused on that to drive those topics home. Once you have those goals and those topics determined by the leadership team, that's when the SKO planning crew can kind of get moving. And kind of pivoting a little bit towards that role of the frontline managers, I would argue that having buy-in from managers is one of the most crucial components to actually delivering that sticky SKO. Once you've aligned with those managers on the outcomes and those actions you're actually trying to drive, we take kind of a two-phased approach to build that manager buy-in. The first phase is actually around knowledge acquisition. I think a lot of times people overlook the fact that managers themselves actually need to learn the topic. When they don't feel knowledgeable about something, they're going to typically shy away from it. They're not really going to be bought in. So create that opportunity for them to be learners themselves, and they can feel really confident and knowledgeable on the topic. That way, managers can actually be a really awesome resource for the reps if they have to learn on that topic themselves. The second phase to it is more of that manager enablement phase, if you will. So this is where once they've had an understanding of the topic itself, they can actually pivot their own focus towards driving that action with their teams. As an enablement team, we take the time to walk the managers through what their role will be pre-event, during the event, and even post-SKO. And we make sure we allow the time for them to ask any questions they have, even to articulate any concern. We just want to get tightly aligned prior to rolling out anything to the reps. So, you show that unified front, and you guys are really a team working with the managers and enablement. And we found that when you plan ahead and you get crisp about expectations, the managers can almost become an extension of your enablement team, which I think everyone in enablement can relate to. We wish we had more bandwidth, more team members. So yeah. And also one other thing too, when you have those executives and the managers actually aligned and bought into the goals and topics, it's more of an authentic excitement from the top down. It's not something it's truly authentic. They're bought in, they're part of the process.
Got it. That's very helpful. Misha, is there anything you wanted to add to that in terms of what you've seen in real examples or anything like that you think might help around that executive and line management buy-in?
Yeah, no, I actually agree with everything that Jessica said. The only thing I will add on to it is and Jessica touched on this too, be aware of the size of your sales enablement team and your sales kickoff team, right? So your kickoff team and your sales enablement team, the amount of people you have on your team are going to it's how much communication you can do up front is going to be somewhat determined by how many people you have to do that communication up front. So if there's any sales enablement folks out there who are armies of one who are listening and going like, oh, I'm failing, don't worry. It's different when you're an army of one versus an army of two, versus a group of 3 or 4 or however many people you have. So it has to just take that into account. Aim towards perfection, but be realistic about what you can actually do.
Yeah, ton of sense. So let's talk about this flow before we move straight into post. How do you think about designing the week of, or whatever it is, and then post flow for attendees? Like just at the highest level, how do you think about those 3 phases of SKO with an eye towards stickiness later on?
Yeah, and I'll give you a really tactical example of what we're doing. We are using kickoff as part of a year-long rollout of a new sales methodology, right? So I'm not looking 6 months out. I'm looking at what we're going to do this year. Pre-work. So 2 things. One, first of all, timing of kickoff. I'm a really big proponent of kickoffs being as close to the beginning of your fiscal year as possible, even though it destroys. I cannot tell you the last time I had a winter break. New Year's Eve, I'm always thinking about kickoff, but it is really important that we do it as early as possible. And let's face it, reps are not spending the first week back, typically working as hard as we would perhaps like them to. So pre-work is, it's a good framework for, okay, we're coming back. We're coming off break. We are starting afresh, right? So what are we going to be focusing on? So that's what I like for pre-work. I also like kickoffs as much as possible to be interactive. And by putting more pre-work in there, you have more time to do interactive. The virtual kickoff is going to be a lot shorter for the vast majority of us than the live sessions. I'll give you an example. My days for kickoff this year are 4 hours versus 8 hours. So I still have 3 days, but I have half the amount of time that I had before. So if I want interactivity, we have to have pre-work in there. And then the post-work, you can use the kickoff to do 2 things. One, get people excited, right? So give them context, give them the why, get them excited, make them feel supported. But it's the best time for people to be interactive with each other on a global basis. You don't necessarily get to do that on a regular basis with other teams. So it's not just you and your team, it's you and your team and every other team within your role. So lots of opportunity for working together during the kickoff. And then the tire really hits, or the rubber hits the road post, right? So you take all that baseline of the pre-work, you take the excitement of kickoff, and now we get down to work, right? And so tied back to, remember, we're not just going crazy. We have a very clear theme for the year. This is how we're going to actually support it and do it.
Perfect, really helpful. So Jessica, thinking about that, what is the focus that you've had in terms of the outcome you're looking for the week of versus post-event? So, I know that, if I was a content marketer, oftentimes we focus on use of content, and in SKO terms, it might be, education gained or knowledge acquired. And then afterwards, we're looking for impact and outcomes, right? But in your words and your experience, how should enablement folks and CROs be thinking about this?
Yeah, definitely. I would echo similar to what Misha was just saying around getting smart about how you're using pre, during, and post-event. Just similar to what she was explaining, the actual event itself, we are going to kind of be approaching the entire program, the entire thing as a program. So the week itself, using that to inspire, to educate. But when you're focused on that, you need to keep the content extremely bite-sized. Just like Misha said, her hours got cut into half. And so making sure that, hey, can this topic, instead of being a 50-minute presentation, can it be a 30-minute presentation? And making sure you have enough information in that week of that focus where it strikes a little bit of curiosity, it gets people excited, but where they know, okay, I'm actually going to start applying and kind of building the tactical part of it post-event. And that post-event is where we're really doing that application of those topics. So you want the, reps leaving the event feeling energized, excited to learn more. And then post-event is where, you get the more tactical training comes into play. whether it's muscle building through simulations, maybe there's new messaging you're trying to drive and you need to actually practice it, or maybe it's a full-on certification. You're launching a new product or you're segmenting differently. That certification can fall post the event itself.
And then just one thing I just wanted to just add on to that too is, in some ways, this virtual kickoff is a little bit of a gift to us. If you think about typical agendas are, well, this is a 45-minute session, this is an hour session, this is a 45-minute and why? Why is that? Well, that is the easiest amount of time to plan out breaks and figure it out, right? It's not actually because the content necessarily needs that amount of time. So I think the virtual world, I suspect that what we're going to come out of this with a better understanding of is how much time do we actually need to talk about a topic in order to drive what we're trying to get out of the rep.
100%. We're oftentimes trying to fill slots, right? That's a challenge, yeah. So the timing seems perfect for you to be talking to us, Misha, with the fact that you're rolling out an entirely new sales methodology, which is exciting. So after SKO, there's all sorts of new priorities, there's content, there's so many things for them to think about, and particularly in the virtual world. How are you thinking about landing it throughout this year? I mean, you've got, as you said, a whole year to think about. I think it'd be very helpful for people to understand any enabling technology or approach that you feel that should be incorporated into this, and how do you make it in line in their day-to-day. One of the things that I'm a big advocate for is doubling down on what Jess said earlier around line management and enablement and engagement. And frankly, as a former line manager, all I really cared about was that my people are happy and engaged and retained, and that we're hitting their number. How we did it within our cultural values and aligning to our mission didn't really matter to me. So if you said to me, "Oh, but Matt, we're doing this new thing," frankly, 10 years ago, Matt would have said, "Well, that's nice, but we're focused on hitting our number." So how do you? One of the things I'm a fan of is making sure that the managers are measured on outcomes related to what we've taught, right? So it's more about that, the movement of the needle than the use of the dial that I always think about. But how are you thinking about it? You've got 12 months to go to make sure this does what it needs to do.
Yeah, so there's two things that excite me on this topic. One is the usage of tools, and then two is getting data driven, right? So usage of tools, you and I have talked about this before. One of my big pet peeves is we have a tendency to just buy stuff, not my company, but sales enablement, sales managers are the worst of it. We buy a lot. I always joke that if you want to, anybody in California will buy any one of your sales, productivity, sales effectiveness, we'll buy it all, right? I'm a really big fan of use what you have and use it effectively. So one of the things I'm really excited about for this year is we have a call intelligence tool. We regardless of what you use, we use Chorus. I'm so excited we're doing pre-work this week. We've got kickoff next week. We have the next 2 quarters really planned out on our sales methodology. Now, are the managers coaching to it? And are we actually seeing the changes in the reps? Are they changing the way that they sell? You can only do that if you have a tool like this. And you only really get good usage out of a tool like Call Intelligence if you're using it consistently with a specific objective in mind. So thrilled to be rolling that out. That's going to be really exciting. And I think it's going to be a game changer for us. And then the second part of it is data driven. So as we're going into our OKRs and we're thinking about what we want to do this year, one of the things I know that we're going to be really focused on is, are we actually changing things, right? So what is the data that backs it up? So beyond our reps changing how they sell, now we start going into the rest of the data tools that we use to understand, well, so what? Right? Is it shortening a sales cycle? Is it increasing the deal size? Are we retaining customers longer? What's happening as a result of that? So that's what's going to be really, I'm so excited for kickoff to be over so that we can really get into the rest of the year and really start actually seeing results.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, a question that's popped up that's sort of top of mind for me. is around connecting to OKRs at a tactical level. So I'll actually extend the question. I'm working with a company at the moment, one of our alumni company, that wants their people, their managers, to be looking 2 quarters out, 3 quarters out, right? And whatever, but they're sort of worried about this month's number too much. But if you double click on it, they actually don't have a strategic planning framework. And this is a big company, by the way. So they don't have OKRs, they don't have V2 moms. In either of your experience, I'd love to know what have you seen to be effective in terms of taking that long-range vision and making it very real at a tactical level that connects to what Enablement's doing, so you can show that what we do matters because it impacts these high-level OKRs. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can jump in here. I think you have to break down where you're going, how are you going to get there, and what are the kind of click stops to get there. One way that I know we've really seen this come to life is through actually creating a play of what you're trying to drive. So sales play, if you will. You need to actually take the time to write down that contextual guidance of what you want your reps to do to achieve that goal. So we kind of take it in 3 parts. The first part of the sales play is going to be around what to know. So what do the reps actually need to know about the topic to go have that action you're trying to drive? We also put in there what to say. What are some talking points that they can actually leverage in these conversations to have a really intelligent and impactful conversation with the customer. And then what to show. What are the, amazing content that marketing makes, or follow-up materials that they could actually use in those conversations. So what to know, say, and show, providing that guidance. And then following through with, are they actually leveraging the play? Are they reading the materials? Are they sending out the materials? Taking a look at calls, just like you mentioned, Misha, you use Chorus, listening to those calls. Are they actually speaking about this topic, this objective we're driving in conversations? Are they landing it well? Are they using that messaging that has been crafted for them? And seeing, are these click stops actually happening, so that we can know, okay, are we going to hit this goal that we set? Are we actually moving in the right direction, and kind of working back from there?
And then one thing I'll add on to that is, often with these big year-long OKRs, we have a goal that we're getting to. And I think one of the misunderstandings that sales leadership has between sales leadership, sales ops, and sales enablement is the amount of time it takes to get these big things done. Right. So if our goal is to increase, our revenue by, I'm just call it 100 million, we're going to increase it by 100 million. Well, so what's broken today, right? So we've got to spend some time analyzing, why are we not doing that today? Why are we not already there? And then we have to create. And so this is the part that I think often people forget. Then we've got to figure out, how do we fix it? So we figure out how do we fix it. And then it takes a little while to design a program. Then it takes a little while to roll out the program. And then it takes a little while for that change management to really start happening, so that they're starting to do that naturally. And then you have the results. So I always think about it as, if you want me to do something, I realistically need 6 months, typically, before I can start showing you the results. Now, there's 2 things to that. One, especially if you're working in startups, the idea of planning 6 months ahead is insane. That's chaos. What are you thinking? We got to move faster. So there are some ways to move a little bit faster than that. And then the second part of it too is that, again, kind of we get stuck in these boxes if we think of OKRs on a quarter by quarter basis, but some of these things take longer than that. So it's just about starting the conversation and getting alignment on. It takes a while. In order for us to do good.
It does. And I want to sort of suggest that folks on the call think about, with respect to executive sponsorship, to your point, Misha, you've got annual and quarterly OKRs, but at a line management level, the key result, so let's take that example, which is to, increase the average deal size. Part of the methodology or training we may have done in SKO is the cross sell, or the adding more things in the bucket that we're trying to sell them, for example. And we can find out if they're talking about that using call intelligence, right? So we can measure it. So perhaps one of the sort of leading indicators or key result areas for Q1 after the SKO is going to be the percentages of conversations where product A, B, and C were talked about. A very tactical thing, I know, but with years of experience of seeing these fail as a recipient of programs, I know it's because the managers don't care, right? They're not doing it enough. And if we put a key result metric on them that they have to present at their next QBR, then they're going to pay attention.
Well, and
sorry.
Yeah. Yes? Oh, and it goes kind of full circle back again to what Jessica was talking earlier about communication, right? So I often feel that it's not that managers don't care. I probably overload on the empathy, but I feel like it's that managers, they have 10,000 things on their plate and what's shiny, right? Which is usually their boss yelling at them about something else. Whereas we're quietly in the background going, yeah, but don't forget. So it's that constant communication of this is the thing to focus on if we want to change the results. This is how to focus on it in order to get the results, right? So that communication, otherwise there are many, many other, it's not even shinier things. There's louder voices in the room calling on their attention than something that we rolled out 6 months ago.
That is true. So Jessica, you had something to contribute.
Yeah, no, one thing I would just add to it, thinking about SKOs in mind and just initiatives in general. One thing that we really worked on internally at our company is the amount of bandwidth. Not only does enablement and the teams who have to roll out those initiatives, but the bandwidth of actually the audience, the reps. There's only so much that they can actually internalize and take action on. And so our leadership team has been really precise and gotten a lot better at saying, okay, these are the 3 to 4 initiatives that we're going to focus on. And, those have to do with SKO. That's what we're focusing on right now. But then giving us the bandwidth, if you will, to focus on building that, focus on delivering it, and then actually landing and optimizing it. Because the optimization part is important too. Just like Misha was saying, 6 months down the road, you might find that what we thought were best practices, they're not working as well as we hoped they were. How do we continue to optimize whatever that initiative was? So just getting really aware of not only the bandwidth of the builders, but also the bandwidth of the receivers, the audience.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think someone's picked up on Misha's point about empathy here, and I might follow on with you, Jessica, on this. What tactics have you used or seen relating to recognition or other cultural elements that are important for making SKO learning stick? I'm all about the OKRs and making sure they hit their numbers, but that's a good question. So other things that are important.
Yeah, definitely. I think just in general, getting really smart about the entire enablement package post-event. So what are the resources and the recordings that your reps can easily find and have access to? You just threw a ton of information at them. Where are they going to find it? That's going to be top of mind and easy to find. Also, a clear schedule and communication of when topics are going to be reinforced and what they can expect. I think even if they feel there's a ton of information coming my way, but I know I'm going to learn more about it and at X date, or I have until X date to complete a training or whatever it may be, it's helpful to have that communication. And I think the one piece around recognition that we're working on with our teams is around creating a forum for reps to actually submit best practices that they're seeing from other team members. So it could be best practices in a call recording. Maybe they listened to a chorus or a gong snippet and the messaging worked really well. Or maybe they saw that content they were using worked really well with a specific persona, or even messaging within emails. Submitting best practices of other team members. And then on a weekly or monthly, whatever basis you're choosing to reinforce these topics, surface those best practices team-wide, give out some sort of, incentivize or give a prize to not only the person who did the best practice, but also the person who submitted it. So you're getting a little more team-wide recognition, not just President's Club, not just those very top performers, but different team members. And I would say in enablement, I'm always looking for other strategies to see how we can get learnings to stick. So if anyone on the call has any ideas, I'd love to see them in the chat as well. Awesome to learn from one another.
Cool. Misha, did you want to say something, or we got that type of comment?
So the only thing I'll add into it that I think is unique, that I really do love about what we do, and I claim this was done before I started, but we have awards that are done not just by performance but also by adherence to cultural values, right? So are people acting the way that we feel is important? And those are most often, it's not just sales reps either, right? One of the things is really, it's easy to forget, especially with big quarters and big quotas and big numbers, is that there's a lot of support staff that makes that happen, right? So it's not just that we are giving awards based on, oh yeah, you crushed it, whether maybe you are, maybe you're a horrible person to work with, but yes, you got the biggest number. It's not just that. It's also, do you act and show up at work in the way that we think really represents us as a brand? I think it's such a subtle thing, but it's so important. I really do love that.
I can't imagine why that's important, because I personally have never worked with a prima donna rep who pisses everybody else and treats the SEs like slaves. Never. I don't know what you're talking about. Jessica, you said something about President's Club, which made me chuckle, because in my mind I'm thinking, so what does that look like this year? Do we just send them a Zoom background with Hawaii there? Is that what we do? Right. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. So look, we're sort of getting to the end of our half hour. So I want to add one more question from the audience and then a closing question. So perhaps for you, Misha, measuring the impact, how do you measure the success or impact of your SKO beyond any immediate surveys, which is, we all felt good, it was amazing. How do you measure that?
Yeah, so there's two things that I'm looking for, right? So objectives. So my most simple way that I look at all things sales enablement is there's three things that I care about. How do people feel? What do they know? What are they able to do? And you test those in different ways. You test feel by surveys. Part of kickoff is, do we feel unified? Do we feel excited? Do we feel, are we prepared for 2021? That's a survey. So I check it. Are we at good numbers? And how did they look? What I'm going to be looking at this year is, how does it compare to last year? With a little bit of empathy towards self, because it's a very different experience when you do a virtual kickoff versus a live one. But are we getting there? The no, right? So do they understand what we're giving them? Are there key things that we want to be able to test? That's going to be tested throughout the year as part of, different initiatives and different programs. And then the able to do, right? Are they able to use what we're giving them in their day-to-day job? And I'll give you one really just tactical example of this. One of the things that we're doing this year that I'm really excited about, a little stressed about, but really excited about, is we're rolling out playbooks. And we're rolling out playbooks rather than doing a presentation, here's what you can see on slide 1, and here's what you can see in slide 45. And how boring is that? Maybe you can get away with it if you're live, but you really cannot get away with it virtual. So we're doing an escape room, right? And so, when you look at and good playbooks are no longer in paper. Good playbook is already virtual, right? So can they use those tools within our virtual playbook in order to actually drive towards sales? And Highspot, Jessica, we don't have Highspot yet, but Highspot is a really good example of when I think of how you build up virtual playbooks, Highspot's pretty top of my list of how you do that. But yeah, and the able to do, are they able to use the new information? Are they able to use the tools? Are they able to, and then at the end of the day, that goes down to, what does Salesforce tell us? Is it actually moving the needle?
You've just triggered me, because you're talking about escape rooms, which is an idea I love. So setting them tasks, but it makes me think of the time when I went to an escape room with my 14-year-old daughter, and she was able to witness firsthand my cognitive decline. So let's not talk about those anymore. Jessica, is there something you wanted to add to that?
No, just echoing everything Misha was saying, especially around playbooks and having them virtual, having them right at the fingertips of the rep, where they're going to take action. So having that play, if you will, surface directly within Salesforce. They're on, let's say one of your initiatives was to win to compete. You're going up against a competitor. They're in Salesforce or their CRM, looking at an opportunity where the competitor is listed on that opportunity. Making sure that the playbook is surfaced right there in that moment of action, so they can click directly into it. They can get those talking points, the quick facts they need, so they can go into that conversation ready to go and have those differentiators top of mind. So just making it at their fingertips, digital, bite-sized, easy to consume. Since everyone right now is fighting Zoom fatigue, they're fighting all of the different distractions. Making it as surfaced up to them, I think, is really powerful right now.
Perfect. All right, then in closing, I have a question. There's some folks on the call I know who are working with smaller, so they're heads of sales, VPs of sales, so smaller organizations that may or may not have their first enablement practitioner. And the question often comes up, from first-time CEOs I know, why are we spending so much money on this? Why do you need a sales kickoff? Now, I think we talked a lot about that, but I guess, Jessica, I'd love to know your perspective. Post-pandemic, what do you see? Like, are we gonna now start biasing toward virtual because of all the opportunities and the lower expense and so forth and so on? Or do you feel like we're going to go back to what we did before and SKO investments will stay the same? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation to have. I definitely think moving forward, they'll forever be different. And that's for a couple of reasons. The first is that this has allowed us to get really smart about how we use technology, how we use in-person time. So, thinking of this full program aspect, what comes before, what comes during, what comes post. So I think there always will be a virtual aspect moving forward. However, I think this year has also taught us the importance of human connection and bringing everyone together and that appetite for being with team members. So I think that in-person SKOs will forever, if possible, stick so that people can come together and use it more of a team building time, using it as a time to reignite, get bought into the why, really bringing people together, and then getting smart with the technology you have to drive those actions post-event.
Yeah, I would say it's almost, we have to steal from Fight Club and we have to say, nobody talk about how little we're spending this year on kickoff. CFOs cannot know this. We need to keep finance away from it. It's got to be our little secret, because there is so much that comes out of being in person. I always hate this as a sales enablement professional, because we spend so much time and energy on the content. We spend so many hours are spent making sure that everything is seamless. What do people get out of kickoff? It's often the stuff that's after the event is over. And it's not at the party that we have planned and put so much time into. It's the after party. It's over coffee. It's during the breaks. There's something that's so special about spending time with your peers in person. So I think it's going to be very interesting when we can travel again, but if we cannot, we have to get back in person again.
I agree, and I'll be waiting for everybody because, as Misha knows, I moved to Las Vegas last year. Super excited to see all of your sales teams here and hang out with you, and nobody came. I can't believe it. But anyway, so to wrap up what I think was a wonderful session, some key takeaways for you folks. Number one, we need executive sponsorship that connects what we do at SKO to company goals. And then we need to very tactically connect those to key result areas or other specific line management objectives such that managers know that this is important. One thing we didn't touch on, which I always like to think about, is if you're going to do certifications, managers certify first, leading by example. Then the reps know that they have to be able to do the pitch and whatever else themselves. We talked about the fact that with virtual sessions, we need to be much more thoughtful about how we're using time now because we are more time constrained. We can be more efficient. And we have this objective beyond SKO, making sure that people have a journey that doesn't just last 2 weeks, and that we have things like escape rooms to reinforce learning and to prove what we're doing. There's recognition, as Jessica pointed out, in terms of displaying doing the things we taught them to do. Misha talked about cultural values. So there was a lot packed in there. Is there anything I missed, team, that people need to really think about when they walk away from here?
For anybody who's running kickoff, I say good luck. And we're thinking about you. And actually, the last thing I will say too, and please, nobody reach out to me on LinkedIn this week because I cannot talk to anybody. This is Matt. You have my only time off, and we're taking time out of sleeping for this one. But afterwards, if you're head of sales, you don't have sales enablement in place, and you're just curious, how do I do this? I'm happy to share some best practices. Any friend of Matt's is a friend of mine. So I'm happy to share some. It is a very different experience, and you cannot run the same kickoff if you do not have a sales enablement team. So set that expectation, but happy to share.
Yep, I'd echo the same. I'm not in craziness of SKO until a few weeks from now, so always feel free to reach out as well. And I popped a checklist resource in the chat, I found it helpful just where to begin and kind of what are those steps to take when planning, whether you have that enablement team or not. But yes, great talking with all of you today.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. Good luck with the rest of your week. For those of you who are planning SK or in the middle of it, yes, we wish you all the very best. And for those of you who are finishing off your year, January 31, it's coming up in 3 weeks. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.